In this project, we are going to model a simple kindergarten chair like this one. First, we won't be needing this lamp and this camera for now. We can select them by pressing Ctrl-I, which basically invert the selection. Then press X and then choose Delete. Now, in this project, we are going to model using a real measurement unit. Currently, the size of this cube is pretty large for a kindergarten chair. If we select it and then press N to open the sidebar panel, we can see the size of it is 2 meters by 2 meters by 2 meters. We want to set the width to be only 35 centimeter. For the length, I want to have 35 centimeter also. And for the height of the seater, it should be 30 centimeter. So let's input the dimension for the width 35 centimeter in the X input field. Press Tab. Then for the length, it should be 35 centimeter also. Then enter. We will fix the height later. Now, before we continue, remember that every time we change the dimension, we should always apply the scale afterward. This is so the scale values are back to the default, which is 1. So press Ctrl-A and then choose Scale here. We can see the scale values are now back to the default. Next, let's go to the edit mode. Then select the upper face and change the z-coordinate of it to 30 centimeter. For grown-ups, 30 centimeter seater height is probably too low, but for small kids, this is just about right. Next, we want to make the seater thickness to be about 4 centimeter. Select the bottom face and then input the z-coordinate value here to 26 centimeter, or you can just type in 0.26 and then enter. So now we have something like this. You may notice that the grid here is too big. It is set to 1 meter by default. If we want to set the grid to 10 centimeter, we can go to the Overlays option panel up here and then change this grid scale value to 0.1. Now, this grid size is 10 centimeter by 10 centimeter. Next, if we go to the View tab in the sidebar, the viewport clip start here is too big for working on small objects. Currently, it is set to 10 centimeter. With this value, if we zoom too close, closer than 10 centimeter, the viewport will start clipping. For working with smaller objects, we need to make this clipping value smaller. Let's just enter 0.001 or 1 centimeter. This way, we can zoom closer to see the detail of an object. So to recap, there are 2 steps that you need to take when working with small-sized objects. First, you need to change the grid size. And second, you need to make the viewport start clipping value to a very low number. Now, before we move on, as I mentioned earlier, it is important that your object should always be facing the negative Y direction when doing modeling. This is because this direction is the default front direction. And so the positive Y direction, which is aligned to this Y letter with a green circle here, is that way to the back direction of the object, okay? Next, we need to add several cuts this way and this way. So press Ctrl-R, scroll the mouse until we have 3 loop cuts, left click and then right click. Then we need to do it again for this side also. Ctrl-R, scroll, left click and then right click. Next, we want to mirror this object, so we only need to work on the right side and the left side will follow automatically. So go to the modifier panel, add modifier, and then mirror. Make sure we have the x-axis and the bisect x active also. And we also want this clipping option on. Let's start adding the legs. Go to the face mode, select this face and then this face also. Then press I to inset them. Open the operator panel and let's just input the value for this gap. I think 1.5 centimeter will be enough. Then press E to extrude them. Now, we want these faces to be at the ground. So press N and make sure we are in the Item tab. And let's just input 0 on the Z-coordinate. Next, we want to add the backrest part of the chair. Let's select this face here. Press I to inset. Use the same values as before, which is 1.5 centimeter or 0.015 meter. Then we want to extrude this for 10 cm. So press E, then type 0.1, then enter. Next, we need to add another extrude for 20 cm. Press E, type 0.2, and then enter. Then lastly, for the top part, we want to add another 2 cm extension. So press E again, type 0.02, then hit enter. Next, we want to create the backrest. We need to extrude this face for 2 cm again. Press E, 0.02, and then enter. Then extrude this part. I'm just using my mouse now. Next, we want to extrude this until the mirror plane. Because currently, we have the clipping option turned on. If we extrude this face all the way, it won't cross the mirror plane. This is nice, but after we confirm, if we press Shift Z to go to the wireframe mode, we can see we have this interior face. Now this is a bad thing. We will discuss why this is bad later. For now, just make sure you delete the face. This way, when later we apply the modifier, we will have a clean mesh interior, okay? Now, we can already see the basic shape of our chair model. Next, we want to make some adjustments to the model to make it look more comfortable. And also, I think we need to make the backrest a bit taller. So press 3 in the numpad to go to the side view. Let's hide the sidebar panel. Go to the vertex mode. Next, we need to select the whole vertices in the backrest area. If we try to do this in the solid view mode, we can only select the vertices that we can see. In Blender, you can only select sub-objects that you can see. Anything that is not visible directly will be ignored. To give you an example, if I hold Ctrl and then click drag with the right mouse button, it seems that everything is selected. But notice if we rotate the view, these vertices are actually not selected. So how can we select them easily? Well, we need to see the vertices to be able to select them. To do that, we can either activate the X-ray mode by pressing Alt-Z, or by entering the wireframe mode here, or just using the Shift-Z shortcut. Now, if we do another lasso selection like this, we have all of the backside vertices selected also. But let me select the upper part only, and just move this up a bit. I think it looks better this way. Now, select the whole backrest area. What we want with these vertices is to rotate them, but using this point here as the rotational axis location. We can do this with the help of the 3D cursor. So zoom in a bit, hold Shift, and then right-click on this spot. Next, when rotating or doing any transformation in general, Blender will use the pivot point. To set this 3D cursor as the pivot point, we can go up here and change this to 3D cursor. We can see the transform manipulator position now is at this 3D cursor location. If we press R to rotate, the rotation will use that location as the rotational axis. Left-click to confirm. Make sure we change the pivot point back to the default, which is median point. Next, we want to select these vertices. Press Alt-A first to deselect everything, then lasso select this, and then just move them to the backside like this. Let's do this also for the front legs. Just a tiny bit. So now we have something like this. Next, we want to add some stretchers in this area and also up here in this area. I don't think we need any for this back area because we already have some rail at the top. So let's go back to the side view. Now we want to cut these legs straight horizontally. We can use the bisect tool or the knife tool for this scenario. Let's just use the knife tool for now. Let me close this panel first. So press K to activate the knife tool. Click and release at this spot. Now, while we move the mouse like this, press C to constrain it to the horizontal direction. And then also press Z to make the knife tool cuts everything, including the faces at the backside. Then left click. Now remember how the knife tool works. We are still cutting the object now. To confirm, we need to press spacebar or enter. Next, we want to cut this area also. So go back to the side view. Just like before, press K. then C to constrain, and then Z to cut through everything. Left click and then spacebar. Next, go to the edge mode. We already have this edge loop selected. Hold Shift and Alt and click on this edge loop and then this edge loop also. Then press Ctrl B to bevel the edge loops. Beveling an edge loop will result in the edge loop to split apart like this, okay? Now go to the face mode and select this face here, then this face, and also this face up here. Next, press I to inset the faces. Let's input, I think 5 mm will be fine. So let's type 0.005 and then enter. Next, let's select the two faces on this side. Right click and then choose Bridge Faces. So we get something like this. For the top face, we cannot bridge this because we actually don't have anything at the left side. For this, we can press E to extrude until touching the mirror plane and then left click. Remember, we need to remove this interior face here. So press X and then choose Faces. The 3D modeling process is finished. We just need some refinement on the corners. Let's center out the 3D cursor by pressing Shift-C. The next thing we need to do is to make the corners less sharp, because in the real world, we hardly find sharp corners like this. Well, unless the objects are intentionally made sharp, like knives or swords, for example. Essentially, one of the key ingredients to make an object looks more realistic is to make the corners a bit blunt. In Blender, we can do this easily by using the bevel modifier. Now, the bevel modifier, by default, will bevel all of the edges in the model. We can see this in the wireframe mode. Or, you can also display the wireframes while in solid mode by going to the overlays options up here and then turn on this wireframe checkbox here. We can see that all of the edges are beveled. We don't want this. We need the bevel to only take place at the sharp corners. For this, we can go to the limit method options and then choose angle here. With this mode, only the edges that form an angle above this angle value will be beveled. Next, we want the width of the bevel to be only 2 mm. We can type in here 2 mm and then enter. Let's turn off the wireframe display again. The last step is to add the material. If we go to the material panel, because we are modeling from the default cube, we already provided with a material here. Let's rename this material to wood.plane, just for example. And I think I need to make this UI area a bit bigger. Change the color to a bright brown color. And let's activate the material preview viewport mode. Reduce the roughness value to 0.3. If you want to render this scene, then you need a light source. Just as we discussed earlier, we can put an HDRI image as the environment light source. Here, I have a folder where I put different HDRI files. I downloaded all of these files from hdriheaven.com. Let's pick this one. Or perhaps this one. Let's just see how it looks. Don't forget to use the rendered view mode. I think the color is too yellowish. Let me change this back to a more neutral color. Okay, I think I go with this one. Next, go to the render settings panel, and we want to use this ambient occlusion. Essentially, AO or ambient occlusion will add subtle shadows on corners or crevices. So just turn this on. Now we can see the soft shadows appear on the model. Next, let's turn on the screen space reflection, so we get this nice self-reflection on the surface. Then, we don't want to see the background when we render it later. So go to the film section here, and then check this transparent option here. We finally have a nice setup that we can render. But I will skip the rendering part as you should already know how to do that by now.